We're officially a quarter of the way through the UFL season, and it's time for you to hop on the money train and talk ball. That's right, join me as I break down UFL Week 4, game breakdowns, and best bets. Welcome, football fans, to another edition of IDP Plus Bets. What is up, folks? I am your host here, the Degen Doc. And what a day, what a week. Again, quarter of a way through the UFL season already. 3 weeks done. We've got 7 weeks of the regular season to go. And then, of course, one round of playoffs in the UFL championship game, which they just announced is again in St. Louis. So shout out to you, St. Louis fans. I think it's a little bit weird. You got an 8-man team. You're going to the same place back to back. Why not wait and at least see, what teams are in the playoffs? And then kind of, if you're going to give it to one of your teams and you want that home field environment, why not just play it at the home field of the actual stadium? Doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. I know people are saying, well, the NFL does an alternating, rotating schedule, but you've only got 8 teams. And let's be honest, not all of them are the best environments. But, I mean, it really is just a testament to St. Louis fans. Battlehawk fans. They are clearly the rowdiest and really give a home edge. So shout out to them. But let's get to it, man. This has been a fun season so far. UFL Week 3 brought the craziness. Every single underdog covered the spread, and 2 of them won outright, with one of them in Arlington really just blowing that game in the last minute here. So the dogs were absolutely barking in UFL Week 3. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, wow. There's some poor bastard out there that gave out all the favorites, that played all the favorites last week. Yeah, that was me. That was tough. Very, very, very tough. So, look, we'll actually get right into recap. Always going to want to recap with you guys how it went. UFL Week 3. Obviously, for those that listen, thank you for listening. Hopefully, I were able to get my player prop plays again. So I would love to give out a video talking spreads, totals, and player props. Unfortunately, the books don't list player props until the earliest I've seen is Thursday. I've been on ESPN Bet is the best one for player props, and that's where I'm getting all my player props. But every Friday, I will post my card as I've done each week, and that's really where we help to make up. Look, first week we were 5-1 sides and totals. Then next week it was kind of mad, but we had a really nice week in the props market, including hitting a plus 850. And then last week got teeth kicked in a little bit, but thankfully I cannot imagine, as you can see, a lot of red. Thankfully, Bryce Perkins does exist. Was able to hit him anytime touchdown through over 3-1. Most passing yards of the game 2-1, and I had my most units of the week on his passing total, which he cleared by over 100 yards. Even though Mike Olin tried to get tricky with us. But yes, as you can see there. So the first losing week of the season, it is going to happen, folks. That is gambling. But on the year, 16 units up still on the year if you were to tail all of my plays with the units there. So overall, not too shabby. Again, not going to win every single week, but 16 units in the positive on the year. So just a quick recap. All right, let's get into now turning the page to UFL Week 4 here, because we've got a really, really good one. I think these teams, we saw it look like for a while maybe all the favorites and all the unders are going to cash, right? And then we got some parity last week of, hey, maybe these teams aren't so bad. So let's talk about how I see these teams heading into Week 4 with my power rankings here. Look, you got to start with the DC Defenders. They are clearly the best team in the league because they've beat all the teams that have been put in front of them, right? I'm not someone that just tries to value potential and projected this and all that stuff. Look, they've won all their games. They're the only undefeated team. I think they have to be first. I still have questions about this DC Defenders team, particularly their offense, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but they are coming in at the number 1 spot. Number 2, give me St. Louis Battlehawks. Really, 2 through 5 were an absolute toss-up here. This was a little bit tough. Obviously, Birmingham already beat Michigan, so can't put them there. DC has beat a couple of these teams. Obviously, they're going to be on top, but And Birmingham just beat Arlington, so that would make no sense for Birmingham to be below those two teams. But for really St. Louis and Birmingham haven't played yet. St. Louis has looked better against inferior competition, but we just saw them kind of get exposed against DC. Both Birmingham and St. Louis have lost to DC. Michigan, I think that with Bryce Perkins at quarterback, as you can see, I think they're a much better team than without him. And then Arlington Renegades, they're coming in on the fifth spot, the last 2-1 team. Memphis and so Houston got their first win, so they've got to be number 6. And then between San Antonio and Memphis, I just think San Antonio looks a little bit better. Although Memphis, I think they just got to figure it out at quarterback with Ken Wisenhunt there. They've been more competitive than they should in week 1. It's pretty funny that I don't think there's that much distance between the number 1 team and the number 8 team here. I think this year, unlike Birmingham last year, I don't think there's one really, really good team that's going to separate itself too much. So we shall see. But that's how I have them being ranked going into UFL week 4. Would love to hear some debate there because I think there is some debate. Other than I think you got to have DC up top and you got to have, the Brahmas and Memphis down below. But a lot of that in between, it can be debatable. So go ahead and drop a comment. See what you think. Give me your power rankings. Would love to hear it. All right, going into this week, I always like to highlight the biggest injury news and any trade news. Last week was highlighted by the Marcus Sims getting traded to Houston for a tackle that was inactive for the Michigan Panthers. So always kind of curious what the hell Michigan's doing. As long with the Breland Speaks injury, Breland Speaks is going to be out for likely the season there for Michigan. The UFL defensive player of the year, reigning defensive player of the year, obviously a huge injury. This week, some pretty damn big injuries, highlighted by DC Defenders wide receiver Ty Scott. Fractured his arm. He's going to be out at least 5 games, and giving the sense that it's a fracture, those typically take 2 to 3 months to heal. Best case scenario, he returns for the playoffs. Absolute best case scenario, you are going to expect him out at least the regular season there. But Ty Scott, he's the second leader in receiving yards in the entire league. Clearly the wide receiver 1 in DC. They have the most passing yards at just around 600 yards. He's got a third of those yards. This is a massive, massive injury for DC. So Ty Scott, they're going to have to figure it out. When the offense wasn't even clicking on all cylinders, now their best target, best offensive weapon is out for at least 5 again, likely the season. We've also got Birmingham left tackle Jaron Jones put on the IR, starting left tackle for them. Nobody loves losing their left tackle for at least 5 games. St. Louis cornerback Brandon Sebastian, starting cornerback. He's on the IR, going to be out at least 5 games. And then you've got Michigan signed quarterback Alan Bowman, which means likely Danny Etling is not going to be out there. Look, Danny Etling, for whatever reason, Mike Nolan loves this guy over Bryce Perkins. It makes no sense to me, but he rolled him out there. He tried to start him. Unfortunately, Danny Etling got his head taken off. Not literally, but if you look at the play, it's not far from the truth. He got knocked out with a concussion, is not practicing to start the week. With the Bowman signing, this likely means they're not expecting him to be there for this week. I also want to just highlight one thing here. I'm going to bring back up this screen here. We're going to go to some news. There is a player who is unfortunately cut, and I'm going to imagine everyone's seen this video by now, but if not, I'm going to go ahead and try to play this for y'all. Let's see if we can get this up and working here.
No, you don't go in the game. No.
So this is head coach CJ Johnson for the Houston Roughnecks there. Oh boy. Let's see if this plays here. Of course. The sound is not working. Well, I promise you're going to want to check it out. It's a very funny video. Essentially, the coach is saying, "Why are you in the game?" And he's talking to his player that went in, and it was like a punt coverage or something like that. So it turned out to be tight end Cam Sutton, and Cam Sutton got cut today, unfortunately. So if you haven't seen it, NFL on ESPN retweeted it out. It's essentially talking about, he's like, why are you in the game? Why are you in the game? Who put you in the game? And they're kind of making fun of it. And it's like they're starting tight end. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. But yes, indeed, clearly, CJ Johnson there was very upset about it and was not just messing around because he's cut. So unfortunate for Cam Sutton there from Houston, but yeah, he has been cut. So go look at the clip. Obviously, having technical difficulties here, but go look at the clip. You could just type in "Why are you in the game?" CJ Johnson, UFL hot mic. All of those will work. And yeah, it's CJ Johnson losing his mind, asking why is this guy in the game. Caught him on the hot mic, and then they turn around and cut Cam Sutton. So tough break there for the tight end there. All right, so let's continue on here and let's get on to these games. Let's actually talk and break down and let's give out these best bets here. Before we get to that really quickly, I do want to tell you about some of our awesome sponsors here, including our new favorite app, Fast Draft Fantasy. That's right, Fast Draft Fantasy, another fantasy football app there for the NFL, best ball DFS. But really the best things that separates Fast Draft is it's in the name. It's a fast draft. You only have 20 seconds on the clock. So no more waiting for these slow drafters and these drafts that take forever. These drafts take under 10 minutes. They're great. And then another great thing about them is they have these boosters that separate them a little bit. You can add boosts to your players, and you can do that all the way to kickoff. So let's say you draft a team this right now or tomorrow or then whatever, and things change and you want to add a booster, you want to do a 2x to this guy's points. This allows you to, once you've drafted, to have a little bit of say in your roster, which a lot of these other kind of best ball apps and leagues, they don't allow you that flexibility. So I encourage you to download Fast Draft today. Use promo code plus DGenDoc. I'll get you a free $50, up to $50 there. All you got to do is deposit $50 and boom, $50 in your account there. Also want to tell you guys about IDP Plus. Of course, as you guys know, IDPplus.com. We got a great deal going on right now. Promo code IDP2025, and you'll get 50% off every subscription package at IDPplus.com. You're going to want to get over there before May 1st because that's when that expires. And then Fantasy Football Expo. The best part about the offseason is the expo. So you're going to want to make sure that you get your tickets today at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. All right, folks, let's get back to it here. And let's go ahead and pull up our game slides. So we're going to get into, for those that first time checking in, first of all, welcome. Cheers. Thanks for checking out, the show, UFL. If you're watching the UFL, you really love football and you're one of us. You're going to want to go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button there. But let's go ahead and look at these games. So I'm going to break down each game. I'm going to give out my favorite bet for each one, and then I'll wrap up with best bet of the entire show, and then DGen play, and then we'll get on out of here. So let's go ahead and get this started with the Memphis Showboats taking on the Michigan Panthers Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. That is in Detroit, Michigan, at Ford Field there in the Dome. So we got Memphis laying 7 on the road. Obviously, Michigan apologize. Memphis is catching 7 on the road, meaning Michigan Panthers are laying 7 at home. Memphis plus 280 on the money line, and the Panthers minus 360. Over-under sitting at 35.5. All right, so let's get into this one. There is a couple days of injury reports out. I'm recording this always Tuesday nights to release it on Wednesday. We do have a Monday and Tuesday practice out. Memphis, their receiving core is a little bit beat up. They've got their top 3 guys, Jonathan Adams, Kwame Lassiter, and Kai Loxley, all limited in practice, but they're all practicing, so I would expect them to play. And then Michigan on the other side, like I said, Danny Etling, backup quarterback / Mike Nolan's favorite person on the roster. He's not practicing and likely out. But their tight end number 1, Gunnar Oaks, is also not practicing with a chest injury. They do have Cole Hicatini there who can step in, but looks like they'll be down their starting tight end. Memphis, they played Houston last week in a little bit of a barn burner. Oh, man, I got burned by both of these teams last week on some awful pick sixes. Both EJ Perry for Memphis and Bryce Perkins for Michigan. Both teams squarely covering the spread. Both teams in control. And boom, an awful pick six kind of kills me there. Memphis really has 8 turnovers on the year, and they have not, they've not been able to convert or get a takeaway themselves. So they're -8 in the margin. Now, Michigan, not much better there. They're -1. They have a problem with some turnovers as well. And for this game, I think it's a little bit tough because on one hand, I love Bryce Perkins. I think Bryce Perkins is one of the most electric players in the UFL, the entire league. I don't know why Mike Nolan doesn't like him, but I don't think he's going to have a choice with Danny Etling likely out, and it's probably going to be Bryce Perkins for the whole game, which is great for Michigan. However, their kicking game is the worst in the league. They're 5 for 8 this year with a 62%, 60-something percent kicking percentage. They're also a team I don't love laying a big number with. Now, yes, they did cover this number last time these two plays. These two teams played actually in week 1. Michigan won 26-12. But for those that don't remember, Memphis was driving down one possession, and they threw a pick six on one of the last plays of the game, Kai Nakua. In that game, I was on Michigan, so I very much appreciated him taking that back and covering the spread. I think in this situation here, I think this Memphis team with Ken Wisenhunt stabilizing the team a little bit, coming back and kind of returning as head coach, I think they're going to go with Troy Williams over EJ Perry. I think his legs give this defense another added worry, something else to worry about for Michigan. Again, they've already lost Breland Speaks. They're a good defense, but they've got some holes, especially in that secondary. And this wide receiver core with Jonathan Adams, Kwame Lassiter, and Kai Loxley is a solid wide receiving core. I think Memphis is going to be able to put up some points and keep it within this number. I do think Michigan ultimately gets the win here, but I think it's an ugly win, and that's kind of how Michigan plays. It's how they've played really their entire time under Mike Nolan. They're not really a team that blows somebody out. They're methodical with the way they move the ball. They're very conservative in their play calling, very conservative in their decisions to go for it, to kick field goals. So I like this to be keep this in the number there. So give me the Showboats on the road. I think, look, backs against the wall, 0-3. I think they're going to throw the kitchen sink. I think they're going to start Troy Williams and let him get some burn. And I really just like this wide receiver core. I think it's one of the best wide receiver cores in the league. I think it's going to allow them to put up some points there. Like I said, I like Michigan to win the game, but I do like Memphis plus the 7 there. All right, let's go ahead and move along to Saturday. We've got 2 Saturday games here in this week. A little bit of a switch up in the format, but hey, it's the UFL. They like to keep things spicy there. So let's go over to Saturday, 12:30 Eastern time, 12:30 p.m. that is in Arlington, Texas. We've got the 2-1 St. Louis Battlehawks coming off their first loss of the season, taking on the 2-1 Arlington Renegades there, coming off a brutal loss, their first loss of the season to Birmingham. Over under, so we've got St. Louis I'll get it right by the end of the show, guys, I promise. The St. Louis is laying 1.5 on the road. Road favorites, -130 on the money line. And then Arlington catching 1.5 points at home, +110 home dog there. Over under sitting at 39.5. All right, so this clearly, as the line in Vegas and everybody's projecting, is the game of the week. 2-1 teams coming off their first loss. Arlington looked pretty damn good, although against inferior competition. They really outplayed Birmingham last week. They got outscored 10-0 in the second half, and really, if it wasn't for a false start that wind up helping the Birmingham Stallions, they would have won that game. So, Arlington really they outplayed them. They really just let that slip away. St. Louis, meanwhile, got their ass kicked at home by DC. That DC defense really, really brought it to St. Louis. Manny Wilkins got exposed a bit in that entire offense. They weren't able to run the ball, and he had 3 interceptions as a result. They kind of gave the blueprint out. Hey, if you can make Manny Wilkins a pocket passer, you're probably going to have a good result for your defense there. So very intriguing matchup. Just one day of injury reports, but one of the biggest kind of takeaways for me for St. Louis last week was the fact that St. Louis couldn't run the ball. And that was against DC last week. That was huge because they were they're still the best rushing team in the league, but they had starting guard Beecham, Andrew Beecham, I believe is his first name. Let me see here, Abdul Beecham. Apologize there. Yeah, he was out with a finger injury, and he's still not practicing. Likely he was going to be out 1 to 2 weeks, so not going to be 100% even if he does play, and that's a big injury. Although wide receiver Hakeem Butler is practicing after not playing for the past 2 weeks with a hamstring injury, so that would be a plus if they can get him back, but there's no guarantees there. Arlington, on the other hand, really everyone's practicing fully, no injuries to report there. Um, but yeah, let's talk about how I see this game going down. First of all, we have the second and third best defenses according to total yardage. Arlington's the number one scoring defense, only giving up 9.3 points a game. So we have really two teams where I see their defenses in front of their offenses at this point. Although last season, the two times these teams played, Arlington, first matchup, they lost 24-27. Second matchup, they beat St. Louis 36-22. We did have a lot of points. I'm calling for the under 39.5 on this one. Highest total on the board. We've not seen the points light up the scoreboard this year, this UFL season. But really, for me, again, you've got the second and third beast defense. I mean, Arlington only giving up 9 points a game. And St. Louis, they've got a beat up offensive line. I've got questions about, how their offense is going to look if they're not able to run the ball. Arlington really good against the run this year. And then on the flip side, again, St. Louis, a very good defense himself. So I think that this is going to be a bit of a close, ugly game. I think it's going to be points are going to be a premium. It's going to be hard. So I really, really like the under 39.5 there. For the side, give me Arlington. This Battlehawks team away from the dome, away from that home field advantage, is a little bit of a different team. And I think they really did get exposed last week, but they weren't able to run the ball. They've still got the offensive line issues. I'd like Arlington to load the box and dare Manny Wilkins to beat him with his arm. I mean, he just showed last week it's not something he flourishes as. I like Arlington to keep a lot of guys around the box, keep a spy on Manny Wilkins, keep him in the pocket, and then be able to really kind of force him into some bad plays and some turnovers. We saw a lot of negative plays. We saw a lot of sacks, strip sacks, a lot of interceptions. I mean, that offense was out of sorts, and I expect their offensive line issues to continue here. And I like Arlington as the home dog. And then again, I like this to be a low scoring affair. So give me Arlington plus 1.5. Give me the under 39.5 there. I'm going to go ahead and trust a defense that you couldn't trust at all last year, but has really proven, again, only giving up 9 points a game so far this season. They've really stepped up, and I like them to continue that there. All right, moving over to the second game on Saturday, we are going with the Birmingham Stallions taking on the Houston Roughnecks. Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time in Houston, Texas. We've got Birmingham laying a big number on the road. Birmingham minus 7.5, minus 110, minus 425 on the money line. And they got Houston Roughnecks catching 7.5 at home, getting the big number there, plus 325 on the money line. Over-under sitting at 36.5. Right away, this jumps off as a pretty damn big number here for a Birmingham team that has shown in the first 3 weeks of the season that they are not the same Birmingham that we've seen the past 3 years as far as a dominant force. And we'll get more into that. Injury report, I talked about at the top of the show, but left tackle Jaron Jones, starting left tackle, is on the IR. He's going to be out at least 5 games. Their starting guard is also not practicing right now, and their secondary is a little bit beat up. On the Houston side, they've got some secondary injuries as well, and running back Kirk Merritt is still not practicing after not playing last week. Now, we only have one kind of injury report there, so I don't want to read too much into it here on Tuesday night, but just kind of some things to note. Definitely, biggest one, Jaron Jones, the left tackle, being out and put on IR because he's definitely not playing. All right, last two time these teams played back in 2024. Last season, Birmingham put it on them 32-9. And then Houston held it better, 28-35. Birmingham did win both times. Obviously, Houston playing a little bit better that second time, keeping them respectable. Now this season, biggest differences for me is this Birmingham Stallions team. They're not. I repeat, they are not the same Birmingham Stallions team that we're used to under Skip Holtz that we've seen 3 consecutive years in this new spring football. Starts with the quarterback, right? Matt Corral. He came in. Alex Magoo got hurt. He got put on the IR and ruled out for. He's going to be out for a while with his injury. And Matt Corral came in and looked pretty damn good against Michigan. But he also threw 2 interceptions, and he kind of showed why he got benched last season and had issues. He's highly variable, can be highly inaccurate, high risk, high reward type of guy. Again, got into turnover trouble last week. Probably should have had a couple more than even the stats do stay. Excuse me. And that offense struggled for 99% of the game. I mean, they had 3 points up until that last kind of miraculous drive where, again, if it wasn't for a 4th down false start, they would have lost and put up 3 points. This is not an offense that I'm able to really trust to lay this big of a number right now. Run game has been very bad. This was one of their staples. Again, the trenches for this team are just not the same. That's really where they would dominate the past couple seasons. It's not been the case. Hopefully, they'll get Deion Kane back. He did miss last week with some personal reasons. I would expect him to be back. That would be a nice boost for the offense. But I just walked away from this team right now. They're the second worst rushing team in the league. And that means you're relying on Matt Corral, a guy who's sporadic at best. I think that's a tough formula to go ahead and lay 7.5 on the road. Going against the Houston team that, I mean, since the Houston Roughnecks have kind of been in the UFL, they've been a laughing stock, right? But they've looked much better this season. Other than, excuse me, week 1, they got embarrassed by St. Louis. They've been playing a lot better. They, played very tough against Arlington. They got a win against the Memphis team last week. And really the big switch is when they went to Nolan Henderson at quarterback. CJ Johnson said, no more Anthony Brown. It's going to be Nolan Henderson for the rest of, until he loses that spot. And he looks much more competent. Their passing game still struggles. They're not going to throw for a ton of yards, but his legs add an added element to this offense that gives defenses a little bit of a pause. Their defense has been able to, although they give up a bunch of yards, they've been able to keep teams out of the end zone, which is a very key difference from this team last year. They've found something in Zakondre White, the running back there, with Merritt being out. He's been able to kind of do things out of the backfield, both in the receiving and the run game. They still have Justin Hall there. They've got Marcus Sims now. I just think that this is a better team as far as they're not going to get just, roll over and get blown out like we've seen in the past, especially with Nolan Henderson. I think he gives them a better floor than Anthony Brown. And I'm just not sold on this Birmingham team right now. I do think they'll win the game, but Matt Corral, I'm not going to go ahead and trust him to lay 7.5 points, whether it's an interception or the inaccuracy or whatever it may be. But this offense especially does not look like the Birmingham Stallions team we're used to. I think they're getting a little bit too much respect. I think we're going off a little bit of, hey, Birmingham has historically been up here. Houston's been way, 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 way down there. I don't think that's the case this year. I think it's a bit of a closer game. Give me Houston plus 7.5. Give me the under 36.5. Both these offenses have struggled to put up points. Houston 18 last week, but before that 9-6. Birmingham did put up 21 against Michigan, but they only put up 10 and 11 in the other weeks. Not offenses that really scare me. Give me the under 36.5 there. All right, we're moving over to our last game on the slate, the Sunday night game, and we are talking about the 0-3 San Antonio Brahmas heading to the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern time to take on those undefeated 3-0 DC Defenders there. San Antonio catching 7.5, minus 115 there, plus 290 on the money line. And just Defenders defending their home turf are laying 7.5, minus 370 on the money line there. Over under sitting at 38.5 here for this one. I think we have to go back and loop back this Ty Scott injury. Ty Scott, again, likely out for the entire regular season there for the DC Defenders. He is so much of this offense. Now, this is an offense that I was already been skeptical on. Jordan Ta'amu has under 50% completion percentage on the year. He's kind of relied on some deep shots, And a lot of those deep shots, as we saw last week, went to Ty Scott. Um, Without Ty Scott, this wide receiver core, Chris Rowland, had a couple other guys step up to some of the tight ends. Um, Very average, very average. And I think that that's going to create a little bit of an issue here because, um, you know, the pass defense for San Antonio has not been the same, and it's been something that teams have been able to take advantage of. I think that DC is going to struggle to do that. Now they do have the best defense in the league, which is great. That's obviously going to help and kind of keep DC in every game because their defense has been absolutely lights out. I mean, shout out to their defense. With Greg Williams leaving, there was a lot of questions about how they're going to look. They went into St. Louis and played lights out. I think they had 5 turnovers they created. I mean, they just played. I mean, that was the best offense in the league coming in. St. Louis was on fire. They could score on anybody, and they shut them down in just about every way, man. That was very impressive to watch. So they do have a great defense, but that offense, I don't know, enough to lay 7.5 here. This one was a little difficult. I mean, I think the Memphis and the Memphis, Michigan, San Antonio, DC Defenders game were probably the hardest to go ahead and handicap here. But it just kind of, I don't feel comfortable laying 7.5 with Jordan Ta'amu coming off a massive win. I think there might be a little bit of a letdown spot here. They're probably going to be sleepwalking into this. And the San Antonio Brahmas, I know they look bad. First 2 weeks, they looked awful. But this was a team that was in the UFL championship last year. They have a lot of that same talent. And they went to a switch at offensive coordinator last week. And that offense looked much better. I mean, that offense looked better than it's looked all season. The running game, especially, was able to get going. They've got 3 very capable backs, especially Anthony McFarland. They've got John Lovett, who's getting healthier, and then Joshua Corbin. They've got 3 guys, that are pretty premier backs, and I think they'll be able to lean on them. They've got John Trey Kirkland and Jacob Harris, 2 guys who are really good wide receivers. So I think they're able to move the ball enough, and I really just don't think DC's offense, I think they're going to struggle. No Ty Scott. I think it's going to be a lot of running the run game there, trying to, get 3 yards in a cloud of dust. So give me San Antonio plus the 7.5. The way they've looked, San Antonio's looked to this 0-3 stretch. It's been a bit rough, but I saw some positives there last week with the new offensive coordinator. I like what they're doing. I mean, it's not simple, man. Get Anthony McFarland the ball. And he was able to get him his touches. McFarland had a touchdown last week on a nice route out of the backfield there. So, yeah, I like San Antonio to do enough to kind of keep it within the number. Again, 0-3, if they want to make the playoffs, like there's only 10 weeks. You got to step on it now. I think it's a kitchen sink game for San Antonio. I think that they're come out and they really kind of test these DC wide receivers without Ty Scott. I think that makes this team a lot more manageable to defend. And, I think that this DC offense is going to put their defense in one too many bad situations where the game's going to be more competitive than people think. So I flipped the script, right? I was all favorites last week, and I, as much as I didn't want to do it, I found myself on all of the dogs this week. So we'll see how that strategy plays out for me this week. But let's go ahead and do the best bets, Degen play, and let's get on out of here. So my best bets for UFL Week 4, we're starting, and we're sticking with that St. Louis Arlington game, right? The most competitive game in Vegas's eyes, in my eyes. I love the under 39.5 here. You again, second and third best defenses. You have an offense in St. Louis that Hakeem Butler's still dealing with his hamstring injury. They're one of their best offensive linemen in guard Abdul Beecham. He's dealing with an injury and not expected to be out there. And then you have Manny Wilkins, who's going to be rattled coming out of the Battle Dome off a 3 turnover game. Actually, 3 plus. I believe he got strip sacked twice, so it might be 5 turnovers. And then you have an Arlington team, who their offense, although they can put up some yards, they've struggled, been very inefficient in the red zone. Their defense has stepped up, only allowed 9 points a game. And St. Louis defense as well is a very respectable unit. So I just think both these defenses ahead of these offenses right now. I'm not sure where they're expecting there to be 40 points or over. So give me the under there. Also, give me Arlington. Home dogs there. I'll take the 1.5. These some funky scores. I won't hate you if you take the money line. I'll also be playing the money line, but we'll take the 1.5 as the best bet. St. Louis not the same team outside of the Battle Dome there. I like Arlington the way they've been playing this year. Again, they really are one false start away from being a 3-0 team. I think they have a bad taste in their mouth. I think they have a little bit of a get right spot this week. I think they're able to, again, that defense is able to give some fits to Manny Wilkins, not allow them to run the ball and really kind of bottle in that offense. And I think their offense is able to take advantage of enough opportunities to get it done there, trusting the Spring King there in Luis Perez. And then my DGen play of the week, Memphis and Michigan over 40 points at plus 162. Look, you've got Troy Williams and Bryce Perkins, two of the most high risk, high reward, players, quarterbacks in the league. I think Troy Williams with that wide receiver core in Memphis in Jonathan Adams, Kwame Lassiter, and Kyle Loxley, some of the best, one of the best wide receiving cores in the league. I think they're able to take advantage of this Michigan defense without Braylon Speaks. And also on the Michigan side, you have Bryce Perkins, who is electric. He can put up points. And he's one of the better, more fun players to watch in this entire league. So I think there might be a little bit of points here. Could see some turnovers. Both these teams have been prone to turning the ball over there. So give me some points in this first game. Let's start Friday night off with some fireworks over 40 points at plus 162. All right, folks. That is it for UFL Week 4. We broke down each game, gave out my best bets of the week. Again, do not forget, follow me on X at the Degen Doc. I'm not just saying that to say that. I would love to come on here and give out my plays, but these books don't post these numbers until Thursday or Friday. So every Friday, I put out a weekly player props card. That's really where, week 1 crushed it on the sides and totals. Being a little bit lacking here, but the player props have absolutely made up for it. So you're going to want to make sure you get over there and check out those plays and get down on it. Again, every Friday, every week, I will be posting, what plays I'm on and what units. Most of them are 1-unit plays, but sometimes, like last week, Bryce Perkins' numbers didn't make sense, so I went 5 units there and it paid off. So, all right, guys. Hey, look, appreciate you hanging out with me this UFL season. I know I'm having a blast watching football, betting on football. Just a couple more months until the NFL, right? So, hey, it's a fun league to hold us over to the NFL. So, if you appreciate it, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know who your team is, who you're rooting for, or who your bets, what you're going to be tailing, what you're going to be fading. Always love to chop it up in the comments. Other than that, folks, I hope you enjoy your April week, your UFL week here. Not a whole lot of other sports on, so you definitely want to check out some professional football here. Remember, Fast Draft, promo code plus DGenDoc, get your free $50. IDP Plus 2025, that'll get you 50% off. And the Fantasy Football Expo, definitely check those guys out. Who knows? Maybe you'll see me in the wild up there in Canton, Ohio. But all right, folks, again, every week, Wednesdays, my breakdowns of the game, best bets as far as sides and totals will be out. And then on Fridays on X, going to post the player props up over 16 units so far in the season. Let's keep that gravy train rolling. And without further ado, I'm the Degen Doc from IDP Plus Bets, and I am out of here.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.